Hello, everybody. This is José Ignacio from the Uncomfortable Dialogues 2022. I am honored and pleased to present to you my good friend and business colleague, Andy Walter. Andy is a business professional with extensive experience in strategy, operations across global shared services, analytics, and IT. He has over 20 years working on boards and board-level advisory roles, and he recently published his first book, Waiting is Not an Action. Without any further ado, welcome to the Comfortable Dialogue 2022. Andy, how are you doing?
Awesome. I'm doing very good. Thanks for inviting me. I'm super excited about it. Yeah, it's been quite a journey over the last, call it 7 years or so. I retired from Procter & Gamble about 5 years ago. And as you alluded, starting to do board and strategic advisory work across a number of players, a host of disruptive innovators, still some work with the Fortune 500, Walmart, J&J, and others. And then just curating a very large network, helping people on their journey. The gray hair was caused by lots of different things, but obviously part of the adversity I've gone through and why I love kind of your podcast is 2013, my wife was diagnosed with ovarian cancer. So she battled for 4 years, and we've been now involved with the Ovarian Cancer Alliance of Greater Cincinnati and a number of things. Since she passed, I've been remarried, and I went from 2 boys to 4 boys now, from the ages of 22 to 26, now all starting their journey. So it's been phenomenal. And the last 5 years has just been absolutely outstanding. And it's tricky because, we talk a lot about the pandemic. For us, the pandemic, was tough, but it was also a blessing because we gelled as a family like we never would have gelled before. When Laura and I got married, we were empty nesters, and 3 months later, 4 boys moved back in. And we had a small fraternity house in Cincinnati, but it really let us kind of connect as a family and be part of something very special.
Excellent. Hey, Andy, I have seen that you have been talking in multiple forums, and the last time I saw you, you were saying something like, start early, follow your passion, and take leadership positions as soon as you can. So what does that really mean?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I've reflected back on 26 years at P&G and the last 5 years as board and strategic advisory. And from the very beginning of my time in the technology industry, what I realized is whenever I stepped up and stepped into leadership roles, I not only created breakthrough for the company I was working for, and I got some really cool examples like, early on, P&G asked me to meet with these 2 R&D guys and talk about something crazy called the World Wide Web and how this was going to transform companies. and I developed the first prototype of Innovation Net, and literally a couple years into P&G was presenting to John Pepper, the CEO of P&G, on how this technology is going to transform the world. So find opportunities both kind of professionally and personally to step into leadership roles and challenge yourself. It's been a really interesting journey, and I coach so many people of think big and take those challenges early. Be curious. Don't wait. And I've never regret. Interestingly, and now 30 years, and I know you'll embrace this, Nacho. In 30 years, I've never looked back and said, I wish I would have took more risk in that role. I've always looked back and said, you know what? I should have took more risk. I should have challenged myself even more to think bigger, to lead faster. Every single role without a miss. So that's what I really try to help people think through and understand now.
Excellent. Now, Andy, waiting is not an action, and that's the title of your book. So Can you tell us why did you write that book and what is in the book so that people will be interested in reading it?
Yeah, absolutely. Waiting is not an action. It started as my journey from being an executive at one company to something called the plural career or the portfolio career. But waiting is not an action. The title actually started in my very first assignment as I was a young systems analyst at Procter & Gamble. And I remember going into my first meeting with my manager at the time, Richard Coons, and said, hey, I've got updates. I want to take you through all my updates. He said, okay, great. I said, well, I'm waiting on these R&D guys for this. And on this one, I'm waiting for, this vendor to come back with some information. On this one, I'm waiting. And right as I said, waiting the third time, he cut me off and said, Andy, waiting is not an action. When you have something to tell me of what you're actually doing, come on back. Other than that, the meeting's over. So he literally kicked me out of his office, and figuratively kicked me out of his office. And that never left me. This idea of waiting is not an action. So, when Debbie was diagnosed with ovarian cancer, we just said, waiting is not an action. Everything we said we would do when we would retire, we started doing now. So I literally pulled everything forward. When your career's not heading in the right direction, or maybe the direction you were hoping, are you just sitting there waiting, or are you doing something about it? Mm-hmm. So after about 2.5, 3 years of doing board and strategic advisory and advising a very large network of executives at all levels, I kept getting the same request. Andy, you need to write a book. Andy, you need to write a book. Andy, you need to write a book. And I kept saying, no. And
you were waiting.
Yeah. And then at the beginning of 2021, I said, what am I waiting for? And
exactly.
So literally this book is helpful for someone, whether they're just starting their career. I wrote it for my 4 boys, someone who's mid-career that's still hoping to be a VP or CIO or CTO or chief analytics officer, whatever it might be. And folks that are towards the end of their first career and trying to figure out what do they want to do next. Now, the nice thing is I've connected it all together. All the proceeds of the book go to the Ovarian Cancer Alliance of Greater Cincinnati. So this is around helping people, no matter where they are in their journey, to stop waiting, to stop playing not to lose, and start playing to win.
Excellent. Good for you. Now, Andy, I know that you have too many passions, including chess and golf and cars. Can you tell us something about your cars?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it kind of goes to the same theme of waiting is not an action. And, I've always had a huge passion for golf, and you know that. And I also had a huge passion for cars. So Lori and I started a small little company called L&A Touring Design. And what we do is design race cars and touring cars. So literally I've got a Ford GT vintage race car, 2006. We'll be racing at vintage this year. On the back wing is tealpower.com for the Ovarian Cancer Alliance of Greater Cincinnati. So we'll create a lot of awareness. And I'll tell you, Jose Ignacio, I 100% guarantee that if I had not stopped waiting and started pursuing this, there's no way, if I just kept, going the way I was always going, would I ever have a race car. Whenever I hear people, talking about the things they're going to do into the future, and I'm like, you just don't know. You can't assume that you can wait.
Hey, Andy, what would you say about having a life without adversities?
It's interesting. Debbie my first wife, as I alluded, had ovarian cancer, and she fought it bravely for 4 years, and we made such a difference. And I tell people she gave me lots of gifts. I mean, obviously, she gave me 2 incredible boys. We had 30 plus years together. We traveled the world. We lived in Geneva, Switzerland, in the US. But it's interesting. I also tell her she gave me an incredible gift, because what we went through, the adversity we went through, gave me a sense of urgency and a sense of living every day to the fullest. And I actually feel sorry for folks that haven't had something like that. As weird as that sounds, I don't wish it on anyone, but I feel sorry for folks that haven't had that epiphany that, I in the book, I allude that, the biggest worry we had before she was diagnosed was fighting over where we were going to do Thanksgiving dinner. Whether we were going to do it at her parents' house or my parents' house or at our house. And now I can't even remember what that fight sounded like, because it was so insignificant. And so I say that, that adversity we went through was an incredible gift. All the things I've accomplished, I wish I could tell you I was smart enough to come up with this incredible model of doing board and advisory work across all these disruptive innovators, across these Fortune 500 across thousands of executives. But the reality is I just did whatever I needed to do to support Debbie. And that adversity, that moment in our lives changed everything. So it's, I'm a big believer in everything you're talking about from this perspective.
Excellent, Andy. Very moving. Thank you very much for your time. For everybody else watching this webcast, if you happen to have any question to Andy or to myself, just write it down here in YouTube and LinkedIn, and we will get back to you.